Hello, hello. We made it to the new year. Hooray for us. Happy New Year. Happy 2025. I'm so glad that you are here. I am eager to jump into today's topic. Few areas of our life affect us the way that finances do. And we have a listener today that wrote in about limiting beliefs around money, having stress around money. And so I want to address it. And as you listen to this topic today, just know that this can also apply to other kind of big areas. You know, we've got abundance and health and relationships. Whatever it is that you're stressing about, or the thing that you think you have limiting beliefs about, everything I say today, you can extrapolate. Is that the right word? Yes. Extrapolate to a different topic that suits you. I'm Dana Wilde. I'm your host of Positive Mindset for Entrepreneurs. I'm so happy that you're here. This is the channel where we help you break through limiting beliefs, make more money, have more fun, build a business a fun, light, and easy way. And if you are interested in learning more about brain training, then you definitely want to get the daily mantra. And that is at danawilde.com/mantra. And you know, I wouldn't be mad if you subscribe to the channel, just saying. All right. So here is the note that came in from a listener. She said, I find it hard to stay in positive expectation when things don't go as I wish. For example, with not having enough clients, that means not having enough money, etc. That stresses and brings me out of positive expectation. So very clear and terrific. And actually, I want to give you, everybody who's listening right now, a freebie right now that is directly related to this topic. I have created a free toolkit. It's got a video and a really cool PDF about limiting money beliefs. But the most important thing is that it doesn't give you the 80 limiting money beliefs alone. It gives you also the counterpart mantras that you can use to counteract those limiting beliefs. And so do check that out at danawilde.com/toolkit. It's a super juicy thing that will take you, I don't know, maybe like 30 minutes to go through everything. And you'll have that cool PDF. You can even use it as a wall poster if you like. And it's my favorite price. It's free. So that's danawilde.com/toolkit. Go check it out. You'll be happy you did. So the first thing I want to say about the comments that this listener sent in is that this is what being a brain trainer is all about. Anybody can feel happy or be excited or love life when they're looking at, you know, babies and puppies, right? Anytime our life is going great and soaring and we're feeling so good and everything's so great, it's not very hard to think positive thoughts or stay in positive expectation. So really being a brain trainer, that comes from when the times are tough or the things are rough or you're having some stress or you're feeling bad, to be able to find a way to shift it for yourself, find a way to turn it around and be able to think more positively, be able to feel the shift in your actually emotional state. If you can feel the shift in your emotional state, the thoughts that you're thinking are working for you. Why do we do this? Why is this important? You know, why does feeling good matter? Can't you just feel bad and just slug away and get results? And the answer is no. And here's why. When you feel good, when you feel positive, you open up the creative pathways in your brain. You have access to better ideas. You show up as a better you. You take better action. You make better decisions. You use a better brain. You feel like engaging, all of those things. But most importantly, there's a part of the brain called the Reticular Activating System. And I'm telling you, if you can get that one thing down, if you can remember nothing else that I say, but remember that you have a little matchmaker that lives in your head, called the Reticular Activating System. And that matchmaker is sifting through all the stimuli coming at us. Now, really, right now, take a look around wherever you're sitting and just try to take in everything that's around you, the colors and the sounds and the sensations and the smells and everything that's in your awareness. Think of the billions of bits of information that are coming at us every second of every day. Well, we would overload if we had to process all of that ourselves. And so we don't, or all of that consciously, let's put it that way. But we don't, because the reticular activating system does it for us. That part of your brain is a filter. And what's it filtering? What's it noticing? What's it bringing into your awareness? Whatever you're thinking about and whatever you're talking about. That's what comes into your awareness. And you've probably had this experience if you've ever looked for a new car, or if you've ever gotten pregnant, or your partner's gotten pregnant. Either you see that new car everywhere, you see pregnant women everywhere. Like it's in your awareness. You're thinking about it, you're thinking about it, you're thinking about it, and your brain says, oh, this is important to you. I'm going to be on the lookout for you. So this is why it's important to be aware. And so the first thing you can say to yourself is, good for you, good for me. Have a little party that you are aware and that you caught a negative thought. You wrote into the show to say, look, at this stresses me out. I get stressed out. And you woke up instead of just walking around on automatic pilot, right? You woke up to this idea that I have this thought going on in my head over and over and over again. I'm stressed. That's not a reason to beat up on yourself. That's a reason to celebrate. So crack out the tequila and have a little party because you woke up and you were aware that you had that negative story going on. Once you become aware of that, the next thing is to talk yourself off the ledge. When you're feeling stressed about anything, and again, as I mentioned earlier, we have different kinds of stresses. So we have stresses about money, stresses about health, stresses about relationships. Like there's all sorts of negative things that can occupy our mind. When you become aware of it, if you can soothe yourself and talk yourself off the ledge, as I like to say, like really just try to be easy about it and be nice to yourself and say some things to yourself like, okay, I'm aware that this is going on. I'm aware that this is happening. I like that I'm aware. I like that I'm trying to think of different things to think about. I like the idea that I'm able to shift this. It's good to be able to focus my thoughts. I like being a brain trainer. I like thinking in my head. I like being a proactive thinker. It's nice to think thoughts and focus my mind. I'm starting to feel better already. I don't even have to think that interesting of thoughts. I just need to just focus my mind and remind myself that I know this stuff and I know what to do. And this is good practice. So you notice all of those sentences weren't necessarily so interesting. And they weren't sentences that sounded like, I am abundant, money is flowing to me. When you're feeling that way, we like to talk about the emotional scale. And I won't get into detail about the emotional scale here. There's information. You can check it out on my website if you like, at danawilde.com/emotional scale. But the gist is, if you're feeling kind of down and you're feeling kind of low and you're feeling kind of frustrated or depressed or whatever it is, nobody wants that happy person coming up and going, hey, guess what? You create your own reality, right? Like nobody wants that person around because it's just too far of a gap. So don't feel like you can jump right into these massively positive affirmations or mantras. Just try to be easy about it and try to just feel a little bit better. Okay, so it's going to feel like I'm all over the place as I start talking about some of these stories that I'm going to share now, but I promise they all come together and it's all going to make sense as we go about. Because nobody really, I don't know, maybe nobody is a strong thing, but I know myself, I don't want to be the person out here going, I've figured this all out. Listen to me. I figured it all out, right? Like we're all banging around figuring it out, and we're all doing different techniques and different methods that work. And so I'm just sharing some thoughts and some ideas that have worked for me, and play with them and see if they work for you. I've interviewed literally hundreds and hundreds of people, and all of the successful people I know, all the people who are rich or financially secure or abundant or whatever terminology you want to use, one thing they have in common is that they're all relaxed about money, and they're not relaxed about it because they have so much coming in. In my experience, in talking to these people and working with these people, often they have just as much going out, right? So it's not about, oh, I've just got this huge flow of money that's piling up on top of me. But it's more that when you speak with them or you talk with them, and I've asked them a lot of pointed questions about abundance in particular and the way they think about abundance. And what I've noticed is that they have an expectation for themselves that things work out, or that things pan out, or that they know that they will be able to do the right things or make the right decisions. And it's that relaxed stance that makes it easy for them to make the choices that are necessary. So this question you asked, the name of this particular episode has to do with transforming limiting beliefs. But in my experience in talking to people who are successful, wildly successful, multi millionaires, probably, I'm going to guess at least one of them is a billionaire. And in my experience, those people that I've interviewed, it's not so much about grappling your limiting beliefs to the ground and going, okay, I'm going to fix you and I'm going to change you, as much as it is about changing your day-to-day thoughts and staying in a relaxed place, staying in a hopeful place, staying in a more believing place, staying in a place of positive expectation. And what are beliefs anyway, really, except the thoughts that we think over and over again? That is compliments of Abraham Hicks, for those of you that like Abraham Hicks, right? Every thought we think is a building block to a limiting belief. And any limiting belief we have, it's just a thought we've kept thinking. So if we can not be thinking those thoughts, then we would change things. But you can't not think a thought. It's not possible to stop thinking a thought. And so instead, you replace it. You replace it with something else. When you focus your mind on something else, it's much easier to start getting that, priming that pump and getting it going. So I'm going to tell you another quick story here. When I was 30, well, let's start with my 20s. When I was in my 20s, I was probably about 23, 24, and I was having money issues. And I went to my grandmother's house and I was telling her about my money issues and how stressed I was. And she went into her wallet and she handed me $5. And I remember at the time thinking, like, oh, bless her heart. Like, that was like spitting on a forest fire. And I mean, whatever, it was probably like, oh, $300 was my big problem then, or whatever it was, right? But I remember the stress, and I remember that story just because it was kind of so unusual or ridiculous almost to give $5 for this issue. So then many years later, it was probably in my early 30s, I was also stressing about money, having some stress about money. And I had that memory of that $5 incident with my grandmother. And I thought to myself at the time in my 30s, I thought, geez, that's like a decade later. How long am I going to do this? How long am I going to continue to have these stresses or think this? And I tell that story because I think many of us find ourselves in the same situations, regardless of what the topic is that we're stressing about, whether it is money or health or relationships or whatever it is. We get into these ruts almost where it's like a groove in the those records. Anybody remember vinyl records? If you remember vinyl records, please say I do. All right. I would like to not be alone in here, but you remember how you'd put a vinyl record on and it would get stuck and it would skip the same phrase over and over and over and over again? Well, that's what it gets like with our thoughts sometimes. We get into these grooves where we continue to think the same thought, and we continue to think the same thought. And sometimes we have to wake up to that message. If you sat down and really asked yourself honestly, listener who wrote in, if you asked yourself honestly, how many times have I worried about something that has never happened? How many wasted minutes and weeks and hours and days, and how much time and wasted brain energy? I have this massive computer in my head, and how much time have I just wasted worrying and fretting about something that has never happened. And what you will find is that the answer, if it's not every time, it's nearly every single 99.99999% of the time. And so there comes a point where we have to start saying, as humans, as brain trainers, as people who are just banging around out here trying to figure things out, where we have to say to ourselves, like, that's it, enough's enough. I am not going to sit here on that loop like a vinyl record and just keep thinking that same thought over and over and over again. Keep that same stress going. And I know you don't want to, which is why you wrote into the show. So since we were talking about Abraham Hicks, I want to mention another thing about Abraham Hicks that I really like. And Abraham Hicks says, when you ask, it is given. When you ask, it's done. So think about the things that you have asked for in your thought process or energetically and asked for. And so I was thinking about this in terms of the brain, and I thought, well, how does that work when it comes to what we know about how the brain works? And I thought, the reticular activating system, part of your brain, the matchmaker that lives in your head, it's not oblivious. It hears every single thought that you think all day, every day. The 60 to 90,000 thoughts that you think, it hears. And so when you ask, you've asked, and it's heard it. It's looking for that new car. It's looking for that pregnant woman. It's looking for that thing that you want. It's on the job. It's on the job and it's doing it. And so you don't have to keep just asking and asking and asking and asking and asking and asking. We don't have to stay stuck in the question. We don't have to stay stuck in the problem. Another little piece that I want to loop around to is a story that I heard Byron Katie tell. Now, Byron Katie was awesome, by the way. I heard this story, it's at least a decade ago. It might be longer even. So if I'm not telling this perfectly, please forgive me because it's completely from my memory. But she was talking to an audience member, and the audience member was stressed about being able to make a payment, some kind of a payment, a mortgage payment or something. And Byron Katie said, well, is it due now? And the person said, yes. And she said, now, right now? And the person said, yes. And she said, really? Are you sure right now? And I couldn't get what she was getting at either. Like, it took me a while to be like, why do you keep asking this woman right now, right now? Like, I just couldn't wrap my head around what she was trying to do. And what she said was, is the landlord, I think it was at Rent, actually, now that I think about it, is the landlord sitting next to you in the chair, looking at you right now in this seminar while we're talking, saying, give me that money? And then, of course, the audience members started laughing and said, well, no, they're not here at all right now. I don't have to pay this right now. That's true. I don't have to pay it right now. And so the point Byron Katie was making, and I've heard many people make it since then, and I now say it over and over again too, is that so much of what we think about or we worry about is just some kind of projected negative outcome that, as I said earlier, never happens. But we get a trigger of some kind. So the trigger might be looking at our client roster and going, oh, I'm down a client, or it might be looking at the checkbook, or it might be looking at something that triggers that feeling of like, oh, here it is. Now is the time to panic. Start panicking, even though this hasn't happened. It may never happen. In fact, history has shown me it doesn't ever happen. But I'm being triggered by that thing, and I'm starting to automatically project with expectation the negative outcome. So when you become aware of that, and now you can start to be aware of what that trigger is, start to feel that reaction that you normally have, and start to say, okay, this is where I'm going to shift things. This is my new entry point for shifting things. I've done this thousands of times where I've worried about stuff that hasn't happened, thousands and thousands. And I have a whole history of success behind this. And I also have a whole history of wasted energy, worry on this. This is the point where I'm going to shift and start thinking something new, start thinking something different. Now, obviously, if you can start to think more positively about money or finances, that would be a wonderful thing. I wouldn't even say that you have to go that far or you have to do that. In fact, I would say there's an easier way. The easier way is to think about something completely different. So first of all, it's okay to acknowledge like, okay, I'm worried about these things all this time. I'm talking myself off the ledge. I'm feeling better about this. I like the idea of having more positive expectation. I like the idea that I can just drop this and that I am so sick of this. I'm so sick of thinking this and my brain is on the job and it's going to be figured out just like it's always figured out. Like all those sentences are good sentences. They're all okay. And you can tell they're good sentences because you feel better when you say them. You feel better when you start to say, anything that is soothing, when you start to soothe yourself. But here's something, and I don't know that I've ever really talked about this before, but the question I like to ask myself when I'm stressing unnecessarily about anything is I like to ask myself, if I wasn't thinking this, if this problem was solved, what would I be thinking about? How would my brain be occupied if I wasn't thinking this thing? If I wasn't obsessively stuck in a groove on a record player about this thing, what would I be thinking about? Now, sometimes you might, bust yourself and go, "Oh my gosh, I'd be thinking about another worry." If I had my whatever, my finances completely fixed up, I'd be thinking about my health, and I'd be worried about that I'm not fit enough. Or, if I had my fitness 100% worried about, I'd be worried about that I didn't have a relationship. Sometimes you can bust yourself and go, "Oh my gosh, I'm a chronic worrier," right? But ideally, what happens is you start to think about, if you really start to think about how would you be occupying your mind if you had that problem solved. If money was no issue, if you had the next client, like you're asking in this email that you wrote in, if you had your next client, if money was no issue, how would you be occupying your mind? What would you be thinking about? Now, it's an interesting question, isn't it? Because we get so stuck in that groove, it takes some time to simmer. And so let it simmer. Well, I might be thinking about a hobby that I want to start, or I might be thinking about a new project that I want to launch, or a new program that I want to launch, or I might be thinking about starting a membership site, or I might be thinking about it's taking more time off, or I might be planning my next vacation, or I might be what? Fill in the blank with what would your brain be doing if you weren't thinking about that thing. This is a shortcut or a jump to the next level. If you think about the people that we know that we consider like very successful and the richest of the rich and all of that stuff, we think that they're done with all of this work. Like they don't have to worry. And I remember I asked Jack Canfield pointedly in an interview with him. For those of you that don't know, Jack Canfield is the co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, sold 500 million books. And he basically said, like, I've still got to do the work. We all still have to do the work because whenever you hit that new level, you keep dreaming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you butt up against that thing that you're thinking that keeps you in that spot. And so this is a jump cut. If you start thinking about, well, let's say you have a business that makes 10,000 a year. And so you start saying, well, if I made 10,000 a year, what would I be thinking about next? What would be my next kind of dream or whatever? And then if you start thinking like somebody who makes 50,000 a year, what would be the next? Well, then you start thinking like somebody who makes 100,000 a year. And here's the cool thing about this. This isn't even so much about thinking about quote unquote money or the money levels, or if you're using this for health, this isn't so much about thinking about what's the next level of health that I can do. Oh, now I should start working out my arms, or now I should start doing more lunges. This isn't even about thinking on that topic. Most of the time, we're going to get bigger bang for our brain buck when we think about something completely off the topic. You've asked, it's been given. You've asked, your brain is on it. Your brain is working on it. Quit standing in the way by being that groove, in the needle in the groove, going on and on about the same thing. think about anything else. Think about anything else that makes you happy. Because when you do that, when you think about things that make you happy, oh, my little kitty, I'm gonna get him some new toys and we're gonna play and we're gonna have so much fun. I'm gonna take up a new hobby of square dancing. I'm gonna go out and start that new get a swim pass for my local place. Like when you start thinking about the fun that you're bringing to your life, the newness that you're bringing to your life, the cool things that you're doing, the stuff that you're creating, the stuff you're excited about. You're putting yourself into that emotional state of positive expectation. When you are in that emotional state of positive expectation, it doesn't matter what you're positively expecting. It doesn't have to be in that specific category because your brain knows. Because your brain knows. And so if you are ready to drop the needle in the groove, stress talk about whatever your topic is, say, I am. If you are ready to start thinking new proactive thoughts about what the next thing on the frontier is, say, I am, because that's all it takes. This doesn't have to be hard. And this doesn't have to be about, and I love tapping. Okay, I love tapping. I love hypnotherapy. I love Psych-K. I love all those different modalities that we use. I'm just suggesting that we can decide that this doesn't have to be hard to fix. I don't have to sit and tap for 8 hours a day for 20 days to get over this, or 21 days, or 30 days, or whatever this week they're saying it takes to fix something. You can do this right now. You can shift this right now. You don't have to sit and worry about, oh, I've got these limiting beliefs that are keeping me stuck and all that stuff. The only thing that you have to shift everything in your life is the way you are thinking right now, and 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 right now. It's that easy. It's that easy. This moment, right here, right now, feeling relaxed, feeling more positive expectation, thinking thoughts that feel good, thinking about the next thing coming into our lives. So start with that soothing thought and just play with it. Be a proactive thinker. This is what being a brain trainer is. Start with those thoughts like, I like this idea and I'm getting this and this is fun. And I like that Dana says it's easy. And I do like the idea of thinking proactively. I do like the idea that I'm the only one that can think in my head. And I can only think one thought at a time. And when I'm focused on a positive thought, when I'm focused on a good feeling thought, I know it because I can feel it in my body. It feels so good to think those thoughts. I love that I'm moving forward with this. I love that I'm getting better at this. I love that I'm thinking better and better thoughts on a day-to-day basis. I love that I'm getting more aware and I'm catching myself more often. I love that I can just drop things and just give that up and just focus my mind. This isn't about pushing away the other thing. It's about just focusing in a new direction, just pointing in that new direction, thinking the new thoughts, and playing with the words until I find the words that work for me. And I'm not going to do it perfectly every time, and I don't have to. And I love that it's that easy. I love that I can just bang around and try and know that I'm getting it right because I start to feel better. And when I feel that ease and I feel that release and I feel that positive expectation about all the cool things I'm creating in my life, that it affects every area of my life. It's so fun to know that I can just relax and have fun with this and play with this and get better and better at it every day. And without a doubt, you've totally got this.